my name's Annette, and you might know me on social media as Nettersplays, and today I'm going to go over the games that I acquired and also give you my first impressions of those games for the month of March. Now, out of all the 14 games that I did acquire, I only got to play 8 of those games. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play as much as I wanted to, but however, a lot of those unplayed games are actual expansions, so I don't feel too bad about not playing them. So let me go over those unplayed games first. So the first game I'm going to go over is this game that I absolutely love, and that game is called Concordia. Now, Concordia, I already have the Salt expansion to this game. However, what I wanted to add more of are those maps. Now, I tend to play a lot of two-player games, so after researching and looking online on BGG, I found that the other maps that could expand into this game actually were better for 2 players. So that's why I acquired the Gallia and Corsica as well as the Britannia and Germania maps. Now they're 2 big maps that I can easily add to a 2-player game, and it creates a little bit more competition, a smaller area, and it's a little bit easier to play with 2 players because we're competing closer to one another and trying to gain a area that is usually spread out, and it doesn't work very well with 2 players. So it kind of condenses it to a smaller area that we're trying to fight over a little bit more. So I'm really excited about expanding this world of Concordia and playing it better with 2 players. So the next game again is another expansion to another great game that I already like, and that game is Imperial Settlers. Now the expansion that I got is actually the Aztecs expansion. And so what I really kind of grabbed me with this expansion is the fact that it's an Aztecs faction that I get to add into Imperial Settlers. Now there's not a lot of Latino representation in games, so I was really looking forward to this game. Not only that, but there's also llamas on these cards, so I definitely was looking forward to acquiring those cards and adding this new faction to an already great game. And if you're not familiar with Imperial Settlers is just an engine building game where we play different factions and we go ahead and just build our worlds, and we're all in competition to see who can have a better world that produces more efficiently than the other player. So I was really excited about expanding that game with this new faction, and it also adds a couple more cards to every other faction in this already existing world. So I'm really looking forward to the Aztec expansion for Imperial Settlers. So this month I was acquiring a lot of expansions, and another expansion that I also acquired is for this game called Qwixx. Now, Qwixx I absolutely love. It's a 2 to 4 player game, and it's dealing with dice allocation, and it's dealing with all these different cards and events that happen, and it's really an interesting and great little game. So I wanted to expand that by getting the Ladies expansion. The Ladies of Qwixx is an expansion to that game, which adds a little bit more to it. So it adds different event cards, different character cards. It adds just a few more cards to kind of make the game a little bit more variable. And another cool thing about this expansion is that it has different modules. It has a total of 5 different modules, and you can switch them out or play with all of them. It also adds different dice that you can add to the game, and it adds this whole different world where you can actually work with the castle walls that are on the game board. This game right here is just going to expand even more greatness to this already awesome little game that I already love to play. So that is Ladies of Qwixx. So another game that I also acquired but I didn't manage to play is this game that I backed on Kickstarter, and that game is called Virulence. It's an infectious card game, and what it's all about is viruses and biology, and it's about collecting sets of cards or collecting different sets of viruses. And we're all in competition of acquiring these different sets to score the most amount of points. So another game that this kind of reminds me of is this game called Sushi Go. Now in Sushi Go, what you're trying to do is you have a hand of cards and you pick a card to add to your tableau, and then you pass all the cards to the other player to your left. And then what you're doing is you're kind of doing this drafting system where you pick one, you just pass along the others, and you eventually build this tableau in front of you. Now with Virulence, however, you're not drafting. Instead, you're doing simultaneous selection. And that all means that everyone has the same hand of cards, numbered 1 through 6, and whoever plays the number 6 card, or the highest value of the set, gets to select which card they want from the center of the table to add to their tableau. So it's again another set collection, but it's done in an interesting simultaneous selection kind of way. And it's also dealing with science, which is something that I really enjoy and love, that's a little different than any other game that's out there. So definitely, if you're into science, biology, and set collection, and just having a good time with introducing games to new players, I would definitely pick Virulence as that kind of game. So during the month of March, I also received a few visitors, and they came all the way from Australia. And one of them is called Angela. Now, Angela is on Instagram, and I met her there, and she's known as the Girly Gamer. And on Twitter and on YouTube, she has her own channel called Nerfenstein. So I'll leave the links down below where you can follow her. But she was really nice enough to come visit me in San Francisco along with her partner Tracy. And they both gifted me a few games as well. So let me go over those games quickly. So the first game they gifted me is a small little card game called Ninja Dojo Fight. Now, Ninja Dojo Fight is a 2 to 4 player game, and it's just a small little deck of cards. And how you play this game is pretty much like a little light filler game where you're pretty much trying to sneak into a dojo by playing these cards that have different numbers, 1, 2, 3, or 4, and whoever has the highest value goes into the dojo and steals a weapon. Now, they can either steal a different type of weapon, or they can even steal some ramen as well. So it's just really cute, it's really light, and it's something that's pretty much like a filler that you can play in between games. But that is Ninja Dojo Fight. So this next game is also another game that Angela and Tracy gifted me, and that is called Entropy. Now, Entropy is a game where I was actually interested in Kickstarter, but I didn't back it, and I'm really excited that I actually got a copy from them. So in Entropy, what I really love about this game is the artwork that's involved on the cards themselves. And how it plays, or the kind of world that it sets in, is that we're all these different characters, and we all lived in the space-time kind of parallel universe, and then we kind of fragmented our times and space. And so what we're trying to do is acquire our different landscapes by collecting these different fragments of our worlds and trying to piece it together so we can go back towards that world. So we're all in a race to try to piece together our sets of these different landscapes. As an actual game itself, though, how does that play? So the cool thing about this is that everyone has the same set of action cards. It's a really simple game where you can play in like 20 minutes or so. And what you do is, on your turn, you pretty much play an action, and you see if you can complete that action, because you can potentially play the same action as another player, and when that happens, you kind of clash and dismiss each other's actions. So there's a little bit of kind of trying to guess what the other player is going to play, and also try to not pick the same card that they do. And then what you're trying to do with those actions is collect the set of cards from the center of the table to piece together your own landscape. It's really interesting, and I really love the artwork behind this game. So I'm really looking forward to placing this on the table, eventually playing it out too. So that is Entropy. So another game that Angela and Tracy gifted me is this game called Robots and Rockets. Now, Robots and Rockets is again another small little card game that I can play in like 20 or 25 minutes. It's a small little filler game. And what you're trying to do is you have these different rockets that can fit a certain amount of robots in. So you have these different sets that you're trying to fill up these seats in these rockets. And so on your turn, you have these different robots in your hand, and you're trying to play these robots into these different rockets. And once the rocket's filled, then you collect that whole bunch of cards. And they're all different colored robots, and what you're trying to do is collect as many of these different types of colors, because that's what you're going to score points on. If you collect the most red, then eventually you'll score the red cards. And so the cool thing about this game here is that you are pretty much just playing all these cards. It flows really fast and it's really easy to pick up. I mean, we read the rules, we dealt the cards, and we started playing, and we were done in about 20 minutes. And it was so light and so quick to play, and it was a lot of fun, actually. And I was really impressed with this little card game. So if you're looking for a quick, light filler, and I haven't heard too much about this game, but I really enjoyed it. It's a little on the luck side of what you draw, but it's just a quick little filler game that, you know, that really surprised me. And that game is called Robots and Rockets. So a game that I also managed to play, and I backed it on Kickstarter, is this game called Ahead in the Clouds by Daniel Newman. It's a button-shy game, and what that publisher is mainly known for is creating these small little cards, games that you can easily just put in your pocket and go. So there are these small micro games. Now, don't let the size confuse you, because it actually is an interesting game. And what I did manage to do with this game is get it on the table quickly, because it's so small and compact and it's not intimidating. It's only a 2-player game, but what I really enjoyed about it is the complexity and sort of decisions that are involved with this small little compact game. What you're trying to do is you're trying to put these buildings together in the sky, and they're all linked up by these different roads in the clouds, and then you're trying to collect these different resources and kind of convert them into other resources. So it's like a resource management type of game. You're trying to collect these different sets in order to complete these different contracts. And so it's a racing game too, because you're trying to complete these contracts before your opponent does. So it involves a little bit of speed and efficiency as well. So the cool thing about this Kickstarter version is that it comes with the base game, but it also came with these extra cards and even these small little tokens as well. And it doesn't need it, but it's really cool that it actually increases the amount of gameplay with just a few cards. And so I'm really interested in trying this out along with the solo version that it comes with. I haven't tried the solo version, so I'm interested in trying that out too. So that is Ahead in the Clouds. So the next game is another small little compact game that I also backed on Kickstarter, and I finally received it. And that game is called Fugitive. Now, Fugitive, what I really liked about this game first off is the box and what it is. And so you can see it's a small little box, but it's supposed to resemble a suitcase or a luggage piece. The cool thing about it too, besides the actual look of the box itself, is that it flips open and it has all these different cards in here. And the cards themselves, it's really interesting because it's supposed to play out this scene of a fugitive trying to escape this marshal. And so this game is a 2-player game where one player is going to be the fugitive running away from the marshal, and the other player is of course going to play the marshal trying to capture the fugitive. In this game, it's an asymmetrical game, so the way that you're playing is different than the other player. And what you're trying to do as a fugitive is you're trying to make sure that the marshal doesn't catch you, so you're going to play these different cards to outrun them. The cool thing about this is it's a little deductive kind of reasoning type of game. It's unlike any game that I already have, and it's something that I feel that I can easily take with me and play it anywhere. It does kind of take over a bit of space on the table, and it's a little hard to find the amount of space for that 2-player simple little card game, but just trying to outwit your opponent is really interesting in this game. As far as the marshal is concerned, and the marshal trying to figure out where that fugitive is, there's ways to kind of take away cards, so that way your fugitive is not running away from you. And then at the end of the game, when you're done playing, you have this scene that's created of the different cards that are laid out, because every card is different from one another, and it plays out a scene on each individual card of the chase between the fugitive and the marshal. So I thought that was really smart and interesting too. So definitely if you're interested in a 2-player asymmetrical deductive reasoning game, then Fugitive is a really good place to start with. So the next set of games belong to a different type of genre that I haven't really explored too much of, and that is called a roll and write. Now, a roll and write game is something where you generally have a set of dice and you roll them, and then according to that outcome, you go ahead and write it in on a little score pad or on a little different card and such. So you're trying to just play a lot with the luck of the roll and try to be as efficient as you can on your little scoring pad or your little writing pad. So the first game that I'll talk to you about in that genre is called Rolling America. So one thing that I really like about Rolling America is that it plays 1+ players. So I can play this solo, I can play it with one other person, or I can even play it with 10 or 20 people. It doesn't matter as long as you have enough paper to play with. And the cool thing is that I actually managed to get a laminator, so I can just reuse these different scoring pads all the time. Another cool thing about this is that it's really easy to introduce to anyone because you're all playing together, and what you're doing is you're going ahead and reaching into this little draw bag and you're taking out 2 dice. What you do with those 2 dice is you roll them, and whatever color and value it is, then you get to place it onto your little map of America. So the color, according to the different areas, you see the dice and what color they are, and then whatever value it is, you go ahead and put it in one of those colored areas of that type. Of course, you can mess around with like the color type, you can guard them and such, and that's a little bit more to the game. But what you're trying to do in 8 rounds is pretty much fill up as much as you can without breaking the rule. And the rule is that you can't place a number next to another number if it's more than one value. So if you have a 6 filled in this area, you can't put a 4 or a 3 or a 2 or 1. It has to be either a 5 or a 6 that's next to it, because it can't be more than a value of 1 higher or lower. So the cool thing about this game is just that it was just really easy to learn, and then I can also play this game solo too. So I don't need anyone else to play it. I can just play this game and kind of try to beat my score that I received the previous time I played it. So definitely, if you're looking into a really light roll and write game, you should check out Rolling America. So another little light game that I've also been enjoying as a roll and write is called Qwixx. Now, Qwixx is easy to introduce, and it's just fun for everyone, whoever's playing this game, because what you're doing is everyone has the same scoring pad, and you have the set of colored dice. You also have some white ones. And as an active player, what you do is you roll them all. Now, you announce the value of the white dice, and everyone can decide to add that value to their sheet. Or you, as the active player, can also grab the value of a white die and add it to a value of the other color dice and add that to your sheet. Now, what you're trying to do on the sheet is you're trying to fill in or cross out as many numbers as you can, because the more numbers you cross out of each color, then the more points you'll get, and you're trying to get the most amount of points in this game. The hard thing about this game is that these numbers, the red and yellow, are going in ascending order. So you're going from 2 to 12, and then the blue and green are going in descending order, so you're going from 12 to 2. So once you go along from left to right, and if you cross out the 7 yellow, well, you're not going to be able to go back and cross out that 2 because you can only move in one direction. So you're trying to fill in as many numbers and you can't go back. So what you're trying to do is trying to be lucky with the draw or the roll, and also trying to accomplish as many colors as you can before being locked out or the game ending because someone can't fill in their sheet. So it's a really cool game, and I've really been enjoying it. It's something that I can play easily at the end of the day, and it's something that takes not that much time, and it's really easy to introduce to people too. So that is the game Qwixx. So another roll and write game that I've also been enjoying, but is not as simple as Qwixx and Rolling America, is this game called Dice Stars. Now, Dice Stars is a little bit more complex, and you can also play this solo too. It plays 1 to 4 players. Now, it's also still pretty quick. However, the decisions in this game are a little bit more complex than the previous games I talked about. the same thing goes. Like, you still have a set of dice that you're rolling and you're placing into this bag and you're drawing out a certain amount. And you're also having the sheet that you're trying to fill in. The hard part is deciding what to use and how much to draw out of the bag, and also pressing your luck too. Because these dice that you can collect and roll, you can fill them in as numbers, which go across from left to right, or you can take them as colors, and the colors go from top to bottom. You can fill it in, and what you're trying to do is complete this block of white area right there by filling it all in with numbers or just X's that you've crossed out. You're trying to get the most amount of points. However, you can also press your luck because there is no number 1 on those dice. There's a star. And these stars you can fill in by collecting those stars and filling them over here in this yellow area. Now this yellow area here, if you fill in a whole row of stars, then it'll duplicate whatever number you've managed to acquire on this left area with the white area and the green. So you're trying to press your luck and collect these different stars and these different numbers. But the thing is, if you don't fill in a row of stars and you have like one more that you can't fill in, then all the value of those numbers on the left becomes 0. So you get nothing for those. So it's a really fun, interesting push your luck game that has a lot of interesting decisions with it. And I've really been enjoying it. And the solo game for this is super hard. I don't think I've beaten it yet. It's pretty hard to play, but I really have liked the decision making in Dice Stars itself. So if you're interested for a roll and write that has a little bit more meat to it, then you should try Dice Stars. So another game that I also consider as a roll and write, but is a little bit different than the other games, is called Avenue. Now, the reason that this is a little different is because it doesn't have any dice. But what it has is this deck of cards. Now, the deck of cards acts as a form of randomizer, just like the dice are. And also, it has a sheet of paper that you're trying to fill in, too. But instead of it being numbers or things that you're trying to X out or fill in, it's a map that you're creating. And so, what you have on this map are these different little cities and a whole bunch of grapes all over the place. What you're trying to do is, you have a card, and one of these cards is taken out from the game, and these other cards you're going to flip one over one at a time. You're going to have a total of 5 rounds. And say, for example, you draw the C card, that means that your little C farm right here is going to score points this round. So everyone is going to have this deck that they're going to follow. And it's sort of like bingo in a way, because you turn over the top card of that deck, and this card right here is going to designate what type of road you can fill in on your map. And there's different types of roads. There are roads that kind of curve or go straight up and down or left and right. And so what you're trying to do is you keep on drawing these cards until you have 4 yellow cards. Now once you have 4 yellow cards, then that round is over. So there's a form of pressing your luck in the game because you don't know when the game is going to end. And what you do on your sheet is you connect these different roads between the farm and all these different grapes that you're trying to collect. And if there's a connection between all the grapes and that farm during that round, then you score those points. Then you move into the next city, and the next town could be the letter E. So now you're trying to score this town right here. The thing is, between rounds, you can only score more points than the previous round. Because if you score the same amount of points or less, then you get a big fat 0. In fact, you get -5 points at the end of the game. So this game is really fun. I've been really enjoying it. It could play 1+ players. You could play it solo, or you can play it with like 10 or 20 people again. I mean, you could play any amount of people as long as you have this sheet that everyone can write on, or just laminate them like I do. But the cool thing about this game is that it's really easy to introduce. Everyone's working on the map at the same time. The only bad thing I would say is that I wish there was a different map with like different city orientations or different types of grapes or something like that to add a little bit more variety to the game. But So far, I've really been enjoying it, and I think it's a lot of fun. And every time I've played it so far, everyone I've introduced it to has really enjoyed Avenue a lot. So that is the game Avenue. So the last game I'll talk to you about is the big game of the month. Now, this game is a two-player only game, and it's also by a designer that I've really been liking recently, and his name is Uwe Rosenberg. And this game is called Fields of Arle. This is a two-player only game. You can also play it solo, but I managed to play it with 2 players. And this game, I mean, you can see it from the cover, it's all about farming. So it's nothing very different than any of the other games that you know about farming. However, it's an Uwe Rosenberg game, meaning it's going to be pretty epic. And it pretty much was. So in this game itself, it played in about 2.5 hours for us, because we also had to read the rules and we also had to get acquainted with all the tiles in this game. It's a worker placement game, and it's set really weird because you have a summertime and you have a wintertime actions that you can select. So during the summertime, you can place your worker on those different type of actions that you can take, but you also have a different set of actions you can take in wintertime. And those actions are very different from one another, but they also relate to each other, because sometimes you get better resources in the winter, but you have to use those certain resources to exchange or transfer them in the summertime. It's kind of like a resource management too in this game. So it's a worker placement along with resource management, and what you're trying to do is, of course, get as many points as possible. And the way you can get points in this game is just so variable. You could pick different pathways to get as many points as possible. So you could build all these buildings, and you can also go into the farming animal kind of strategy by collecting all these different types of animals. You can also go into the crop business and get all these crops, so you can have an abundance of food and you can make a lot of bread. And you can also collect all these different types of carts and have them deliver these different products that you're making on your farm, and delivering them gives you points as well. And I mean, there's so many different pathways that you can take with this game. What I really enjoyed about Fields of Arle is the first initial impression that I had of it was just, there's so much to do in this game, and it was a little bit overwhelming because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Of course, I know I wanted to be an animal farmer, so I wanted to raise all these animals, and I didn't want to butcher them or anything. I just wanted to have an abundance of animals. And I sort of did too at the end of the game, but pretty much this game is just a sandbox of itself, because I was doing a certain thing and my partner Mitch was doing a different thing, and the game was still close enough, but it was interesting because there's nothing really to motivate us to do a certain thing at the end of the game. There is no end of game kind of goal or anything like that. It was just do whatever you want and just be efficient with it, as efficient you can be. So it was really interesting. I'm interested in trying out the different strategies in the game, and I think it's a really epic 2-player game. We don't have too many of those, so it's really a great game that I'm looking forward to playing a little bit more and kind of exploring this game a little bit more. So definitely, if you play a lot of 2-player games, and if you already like Uwe Rosenberg, his other games like Agricola or Le Havre, or even Ora Labora, which I love Ora Labora, this game itself offers a little bit more for just 2 players. So this is specifically made for 2 players, which is great for me. So definitely check out Fields of Arle. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it piqued your interest, and hopefully you found a few more games that you weren't familiar with, or maybe you were familiar with and you enjoyed the overview of them. So definitely thank you for watching. And if you want to also follow me, you could follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, as well as a part of the Meeples Included and the Instagamers Network. You could follow me all as Nettersplays. The links are down below and at the end of this video. But thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and also subscribe, and leave a comment too if you're interested in other games that that you want to introduce me to, or you have something to say about the games that I talked about too. So definitely I'll see you later, and thanks for watching. Bye!